Hello and welcome to Stories, the True and the Fictional, the indie author podcast supporting indie authors from all around the world. This episode is brought to you by Rebecca Kearsells of the Rising Dawn series and Martin Crumbs of the Valor of Valhalla series. You too can become a sponsor by heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/STTATF or follow the link in the show notes. And now, let's get into the show. Warning. Listening to this episode may cause your TBRs to grow in size. Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Stories, the True and the Fictional. I'm one of your hosts, J.A. Bryden, and with me always is our resident reader, Ryan. How you going, Ryan?
I'm doing okay, living the dream. I have nothing new to report other than I will be seeing Super Mario Galaxy on Sunday, the new Super Mario Brothers movie. I watched the first one when I was in hospital back in April of 2023. I really enjoyed it, and I've watched it a couple of times since, so I'm looking forward to getting out, after a pretty crap week and just getting back to the movies. Other than that, yeah, still read the two books I'm reading at the moment are quite long. They're both over 500 pages, so I'm alternating nights. I'm reading the R.L. Stine Superstitious one night and the Tales of Terror and Torment by David Parkinson on the second night. So I'm about 60% through both of them at the moment, but really loving them. They're such great books. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're about to dive into an episode with a whole bunch of people. I can almost not remember their names. We're going to talk world building. This is something we're going to be doing with a lot of multi-author stuff because there's so many people that want to come on. Well, let's bring them on together. Let's pick a topic, and we do some world building talk. We bring up maps. So that's for you, Amy Cormack. We bring up the maps, but. And you will find out if Ryan will or will not buy a Western, you know?
My answer may have changed from the end of the episode to now, so we'll see how we go.
Cool. All right, guys, before we jump in, remember to check out our sponsors, Rebecca Kearsells and Martin Crumbs, our honorary sponsors, Janelle Schiecke and Alexander Robb. All the links are down below. Buy Ryan's shirt.
How much shirt?
Depending when we record this, or when this episode releases, should I say, we have a new logo. It is fantastic. It's going to make some great shirts. So we're going to upgrade Ryan's shirt. I'll run it by him with the design, but we'll have a brand new buy my shirt, living the dream shirt for that too. But yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Let's get into the episode. Hello, everybody. This is crazy. This is me trying to get through the list of authors that we want to get through because we've got a long list. But we're going to do something similar to our story pitch episode where we all, kind of work together to, give tips and discuss world building. One of the things that, authors love to do or hate to do. We'll find out in a second. But let's go around the horn. The outlaw himself. No, wait, no, he's not. Jesse James Fain. How are you going? Anything you want to plug? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jesse James Fain. I write what I would call martial tales, generally focused on vengeance, loss, and redemption. My latest project is called Chaos Theory Cryptid Chronicles. It just came out yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, depending on where you are in the world. So that just came out. I'm a very prolific short fiction author. My first full-length novel is going to be called Gravesinger, and the Kickstarter for it is coming here probably the end of this month or starting next month.
Awesome. And guys, I will leave everyone's links down below, and anything that they want to plug, I'll leave down below as well. Someone is being very secretive here. Stacy, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Secret Stacy. I'm an artist, author, and entrepreneur from Central Arkansas. My debut novel, Bet Donovan and the Battle for Wyoming, is it's a fun, gritty action adventure modernized Western about a refugee woman who finds herself the unlikely protector of a small Wyoming town in a war between the locals and a group of corrupt U.S. Marshals. It's a super fun time. It is kind of the found family of Arrow and the political intrigue of killing Kennedy and sort of the violence of like Kill Bill, maybe. So it's a good time. If you haven't checked that out, I would love for you to do that. Bette Donovan. I have a second novel called Life in the Quiet. It is a romantic suspense coming out in June. And I have several other things that I've written that have not been published yet. I have some fantasy stories and some science fiction. And so I have several things across several different genres, but Bette Donovan and Life in the Quiet right now.
Awesome. I think you had Ryan at, Violence Like Kill Bill.
Awesome.
You lost me at Western. You lost me at Western.
Or I had you at Western.
No, definitely not. I hate everything to do with Western, movie, TV shows, video game, book, comics, you name it. I just cannot do Westerns. I apologize.
Oh, no.
It's his one weakness.
Like my kryptonite.
Trinity, you're back. I feel like you've just been on recently.
It was recently, yeah, I'm back. Trinity Cunningham, I'm the author of the Guardians of the World of Firestone trilogy. The third one is out on April 25th, so I can say trilogy now because it's officially 3 books. It's epic fantasy action adventure. Oh, thanks. But yeah, it's that's what I got going on right now. Lots in the future, but this is kind of the here and now.
Oh, awesome. Ryan, you're in the middle. Do you have anything to plug? No.
Yeah, I've got a charger that's not working at the moment that I'd like to plug in, but it's just not working at the moment. That's all I've got to plug.
Well done. I think I want to put that on a shirt. Yeah, Ryan, plug your merch. We've got merch, and it's good. We're getting a logo updated soon too.
We've been working on that over the last
few days. Yeah.
Whenever this episode comes out, few weeks.
It probably will be on the screen.
Buy my shirt. It's a Living the Dream shirt. Yes. You too can live the dream if you buy my shirt. If you don't buy my shirt, you can't live the dream unless you pay me $5 per day that you want to live the dream. Buy my shirt.
Taxing us like the government. Anyway, Richard, thank you for joining us. Anything you want to plug?
To be here. Yes, actually, I have 2 things. One, I just released a brand new book on the 31st of March called Cry Havoc. It is a homage to the golden age of comics, where I've taken several characters who've fallen into public domain, and I'm putting together kind of my own Marvel Cinematic Universe, where the first couple of books are each character gets their own novella, so you get to know them because, they're 80-year-old characters. And then the third book is when I'm going to finally bring them together as, to be a team up. So I have my individual Hulk, Iron Man, et cetera, and then I'll do my Avengers story. Along with that, I've got, on the 30th, we started a Kickstarter for a anthology called Southwatch Stories. It's based on my steampunk world, which I'm busily writing the sequel to the first book. It's going to be available. We've got 10 authors and 2 stretch authors. I'm really excited about it. The book is going to come out. I would much rather the Kickstarter funded, but one way or the other, the book is coming out. So it's not like, if we don't make our goal, God forbid, the stories are already being written and the book will be coming out. But like I said, I would really, like to. The main reason for doing the Kickstarter is so that I can pay my authors better than I can pay them personally.
Yeah. Amazing. I did see Ryan's eyebrows raised when you said Marvel Cinematic Universe, because me and him, if you can't tell from my background, me and Ryan are both comic book nerds, just massively. Yes. So that's great. Damo.
Yep. Hi, so I'm Damien. I've written an epic dark fantasy novel called The Tome of Harren. It's a massive chongo, it's a huge book, and it's the first in a big series. Yeah, that's it. it's the first in a massive series that I've got planned. So I'm working on the sequel at the moment, but essentially it just follows multiple characters through their different stories. One dealing with magic, one dealing with spiritual abilities, another one trying to find their place in the world. But the main character is this young man who's essentially just been thrust into the world, claimed to be this protector of his homeland, and journeys with a group of ragtag warriors to find this fabled book, the Tome of Harren. And all of the adventure that follows is full of quite intense violence, and yeah, no one's really safe in it. There's a little bit of horror sprinkled throughout as well. But yeah, working on the sequel, which is going to be just as big at the moment.
Yeah, because it is huge. So
Yeah,
you would know a lot about world building, wouldn't you?
just a little bit.
So you're the right person to have here.
I must say, I've had your book, Damo, for I think about a year, or since we spoke on the podcast. And I'm a massive reader, and the size of it intimidates me. But I am
That's totally fair.
I'm a kind of guy that reads 400 or 500 page books in like a week and a half, and your book scares me. But I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome. David Cornford, are you stalking us, mate? You've been on so many times. Jeez.
Well, at least I'm not on a beach this time.
Yes, I feel like you're just on this podcast to have Godzilla come through a door.
It's an in-joke.
The people that weren't on the last podcast are kind of going, "Who is this guy? What the hell is going on?"
Yeah. Don't worry, that episode will have dropped before this episode comes out. So
yeah, that was very fun. It was 5:30 on Rottnest Island, trying to find a quiet spot on a beach to have a podcast was really bizarre. So, well, I'm author of again epic dark fantasy. So my series is the Great Plan series. So first book that was released just over a year ago. I've got 2 novellas since then that have gone wide, so they're on all platforms. And I'm currently writing the prequel to the first book, which I'm just crossed over 115,000 words, and it's still marching forwards. So this thing is just growing and growing, but fingers crossed the first draft will be done soon. But yeah, epic dark fantasy series.
Nice. Well, introductions are out of the way, so let's just dive in. I think I'll just pose a simple question for all you to ponder on. What's your starting point when you want to world build? Stick your hand up if you've got an answer. Like, how do you start? Oh, Jesse, fire away. Pun intended.
I almost always start with a character. It's generally that character has some sort of idea attached to it. I wanted to address magic in the modern military at one point. That's like what one of my short stories and my novel will eventually be about. Is like, how do those two things meld? Well, they meld in someone. Almost every concept that you're going to work with is going to affect or change or work through your main character or maybe even side character. Some people come up with their Wolverine before they come up with their Professor X. Like, it just happens that way. And so I highly recommend starting with a character, starting with a concept, and figuring out how that character's life is shaped by those things.
Nice. Go, David.
Yeah, I guess just from my series, I came up with the concept of the story, and then it just literally was like a snowball. It just kept building and building from there. And then in terms of the setting, I've always been really fascinated with kind of like an 18th century kind of setting. So, a bit like, flintlock, gunpowder, ships of the line, that sort of thing. And so I really wanted to look at that setting and then introduce fantastical elements into it. So I kind of started off with a theme, and I started off with a story, and then the characters started developing, but then this whole world concept just kind of started bubbling away in the background, and then they all started colliding. So similar sort of theme first, but then very much this concept started encroaching.
Nice. Yeah, Richard.
For the Southwatch stories, or the Dark Side Chronicles, which is where Southwatch is set. It actually began as a shared world universe that a publisher approached me about creating the story Bible. And so I needed to create something that a whole bunch of authors could use without stepping on each other. So for me, I took an old Star Trek episode called The Cloud Minders from the original series, where the wealthy people all lived up in these floating cities above the planet's surface, and then everybody else had to live down on the polluted, irradiated planet. And so but it was going to be a steampunk story. That's what the publisher wanted. So I came up with the idea of setting a city on an island. And since it couldn't go out, it had to go up. And then approximately 100 years ago, for reasons known only to me, not my authors, the pollution around the city began to coalesce and the winds shifted. And so basically the city got divided in half because there's this like 30-story wall of pollution, and they call the dark cloud. So the wealthy people and the influential people get to live up above the cloud in what's called dayside. And then everybody else has to live in what they call the dark side, which is where you have to deal with the acid rain, the dim light all the time. No flora because no fauna really, except for rats because they live through anything. But it's very distinct. And then of course the poorest of the poor live in the underground, which is where they had built all their heavy industry. They'd hollowed out part of the island and put the industry below. So the only people who live underground are the people who literally have nowhere else to go. And so I can approach, I've got, I can do, if I want to do a class story, we can do that. You want to do a mystery, we got lots of, places, where of course the city's built on top of itself over and over. So there's always a new alley that somebody hasn't seen. So the city itself has actually become a character because the dichotomies, high, low, rich, poor, dirty, not dirty, it just gives authors all kinds of places to go in the story. And since I'll never use that whole city again, that's why I opened it up to an anthology to let other people tell stories I'm not going to have time to.
That's cool. Stacy, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a layered writer, and so I always start with the idea and with an outline, a beginning, middle, and end, and I kind of resonate on that and just let it simmer for a few weeks. I will keep a notes app open, and I'll kind of start considering scenes and whatever the voice or the tone or the vibe of the story is going to be. By the time I sit down to write like the rough draft, I've usually have so many ideas that comes out really quick, 2 or 3 weeks. And then I layer in, I start layering in the characters' personalities and then the subplots and the setting. But I'm not a beginning to end writer. I am very layered with it and go back and forth and back and forth. And so it's not Rome built in a day. It is Rome built over many, many, many drafts.
Nice. Trinity?
Yeah, I would have said same as Jesse with the characters first and then going from there. But I have been finding now, like moving on to different stories that I've been working in, I had this idea for a new story, and one of the first things that came to me was the setting, which is very interesting because I've never had that happen before, where it's like, oh, I've got this setting and I could build these characters around it. And it's really cool because like it's a very basic, like the woods, and you could do so much with the woods, but then like you throw in so many different elements, and it's really cool to see how that, like where the story takes place will like kind of form the story and bring it forward. So that's been new experimenting for me.
Damo, process of elimination.
Well, yeah, that's it, right? I didn't really need to raise my hand, but I figured I'd do it anyway, just out of politeness.
Fun.
I'm probably a mix of that. Starting the character, starting with a story. I definitely know that the story is probably closer to the foundation of where I'll build everything around, such as going from X to Y to Z. What beginning, middle, end? Where would that take me? What does it need to look like? How can I tie the world building, I guess, to the story, whether thematically or foreshadowing, anything like that. So the story will come first, and then probably the characters to kind of fill that out. And then after that, I expand and go, okay, well, if they're going here, what do I need here to kind of present them with a challenge? Maybe it's a forest or, a threat. And then you then expand from that forest or threat and go, okay, well, how did that come about? And you just go from there. And then that's kind of the starting point, but I'll then shift to the actual, let's create the whole world now around this. If I've started the story and I've got the characters, I've got where they're probably going, I need to make it make all sense. So that's when I'll then shift completely to, let's just build this world for a bit and see where it goes.
Nice. Ryan, if you want to bring up the list of questions and stuff.
Yep, I've got it here.
That way you can talk.
Yeah, no, I'm not as talented as all you other people in terms of writing.
Ryan's just here to buy all your books. That's all he's doing.
Well, I was like, you know what? Funny thing, while we were introducing everyone, I'm like, okay, I've got Damo's books, I've got David's books, I've got Trinity's books. So Jeffy, Richard, and Stacy, I don't have their books. So I'm like, I want to remember the names of the books, because if I'm on my phone while we record, because my internet's garbage, my internet will cut out. So I'm trying to remember different names of stories. So I'm glad we'll do a plug at the end as well, so I can then write them down. Okay, so another question about, world building I'm very familiar with.
Speaking of crappy internet.
Perfect timing as always.
Going off the questions that me and Jamie prepared, I just want to know, are there any systems that you guys use to keep track of key details or plot points or character traits when you're going into the world building phase?
Trinity? Oh, straight off the gun.
I keep like a whole like a style sheet. So I have like a whole list of names because in my world, I've created new plants and there's so many, and then they each have like certain components that they like offer, like healing kind of things or whatever. So I'm like, I need to remember what the name of it is, what it does or how it affects a person, and like all these things. So I created this whole list, and now it just includes the names of places and the names of people. And it's just my big style sheet that I've created that I definitely refer to many times.
Okay.
Wow, that's awesome. Anyone else? How do you? Yep, Stacy.
I do very similar to Trinity, and I have a lore document for every book that I'm working on. I will usually do like a full out fan cast so that I can see their faces while I'm writing. But I write down under every character all of their personality traits, anything specific to them, just so that I can make sure that I'm not doing anything out of character for anybody, throughout the book. And same thing like with Trinity said, with anything that I've made up or with the setting itself. But yeah, huge lore document for everything that never sees the light of day.
Richard?
Of course, my problem is I'm actually doing this after the fact, because when I wrote Wings of Steel, sure, I had the story Bible, but then I had the stuff that was unique to my book. And now that I'm trying to write the sequel, I'm like going back through going, okay, what did I get named this guy? Where was he at? So I have learned definitely every time I write, and especially now with doing the sequel, every time I introduce a business, I write the name of the business down. Every time I introduce even just somebody who's may or may not ever come back, put their name down on the list because it's inevitable I will find them. And that what was a little harder for me, and another book that I'm shopping around, is I did a military sci-fi. So I had to basically create the table of organization and equipment for those military types, because I needed to know all the vehicles, what they were named, what were their capabilities, how many of them were in a unit, how many of them had survived the major battle that started the whole thing, and were they replaced and who were their replacements and what were, so it was just this huge Excel spreadsheet that I have trying to keep track of all the equipment and, what happened to it, because, call signs. I had to, all the stuff that I learned, in 15 years in the Army. But and you have to, of course, then explain it in a way that somebody who hasn't been in the military can understand what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be lost without that spreadsheet for doing my mil sci-fi, because you may, talk, have somebody make a call in chapter 5, and then now you're in chapter 21. You're like going, oh crap, what was his call sign again? So you definitely, you don't want to have to dig back through your book trying to find this. You just refer to the spreadsheet. Oh yeah, that's him, and go from there.
Yeah, I'd be. Oh, Jesse, go.
Oh, go. I can jump in after you're done.
Oh no, I was just gonna. I'm really curious about Damos, like, because your book is so huge. Like, how do you keep track of everything?
Yeah, look, I have a law document as well. It's
Yeah.
probably over several, maybe about close to 100 pages or so.
As long as the book.
Yeah, as long as the book, basically. But the other thing is, I just live in the world inside my head quite a lot. So a lot of the time I'll find myself in quiet moments just drifting into that world and then remembering all of the inner details. So I have like books as well, physical books that I've like handwritten notes, which I'll then update law stuff to. So I keep track of everything. And I constantly reread it as well, just to make sure it makes sense, to remind myself of the rules that I've made, because it's not just about, characters and places. There's also, if you have magic, it's the rules of the magic. You have to remember it, so that way you're not breaking them accidentally. You can break them purposefully, that's fine, but because you've done that deliberately to it's the rule of cool, I guess. The rule of cool comes first sometimes, but yeah, I keep track of it in a massive document, and then each book has its own document where I'll put in the side like a little note of, remember, this is foreshadowing for this book here, or this is a callback to this stuff here. So there's all these little things that I'll have, all these little notes that I'll put in the side of the pages.
Please tell me that all this is compiled in a folder called the Documents of Harren.
No. No. It's just called the law. It's just called law. Like, there's nothing fancy about it.
Oh. Yeah, David.
Yeah, I've got so many documents that are just out of control. So I started off with like concepts, and then gradually I just started developing those concepts, and I started adding layers of complexity. So like I said, the first book set in like an 18th century time frame. So I really wanted to be true to the reality of the 18th century. So I did so much research into, the guns at the time, the state of politics, the state of the world, the economies, and that level of detail I really wanted to come through in the book. So I've got that level of research, and then I started to introduce or merge different cultures. So I've got one part of the world, one empire is based on the British Empire of the time, another empire is based on the French Empire of the time. Then I've got another part of the world is more like the Arabian, Middle East elements of our world. And so I needed to go deep into each of those histories and realities in an 18th century setting. Then, of course, you start adding the complexities of something like magic. And then I've got a whole other section on, okay, well, this is how it works. And then I started adding complexity to that. So adding elements of like Hinduism and Greek elements, and that started getting out of control. And then I went into sort of mythical creatures. So I'll pull it together at one point because it is just so many different sections. But yeah, it's just something that I keep coming back to. And I kind of, with my prequels, then I started looking at, because through this and through the development of the lore, it just got so detailed and so deep that I realized that what I'd written was actually not the start of the story. So then my novellas are set 1,000 years before the first book. So then I had to go, okay, well, what this would have looked like 1,000 years ago. And then as I was writing those, it's like, well, remember what happened 1,000 years in the future. Don't break that, because that's where some of these threads are going. So yeah, just an awful lot of documents that I'm constantly referring to and constantly updating and tinkering with, and very much remember this happens to that character in 1,000 years time. So
You
no,
can't kill
I'm
him.
not going to be
You
doing
can't
this
kill him.
now. They're going to be doing that now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't forget that one dies. So
Yeah.
no. So
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. Sorry, Jesse. Everyone leapfrogged you. Oh.
Oh no, it's fine. Honestly, people are giving more examples for me to be able to highlight stuff, which is nice. I am a full discovery writer, and being a full discovery writer means that the only time I am putting pen to paper is the story itself. And I don't recommend it for anybody. It's just how my individual brain works. And even as that kind of person, I will tell you a world Bible is unavoidable. It is going to have to happen at some point if you plan to do multiple works in that universe. So even to you discovery writers out there who are like me, and if I write an outline, I will never write the story. You have to keep up with those details. Now, to make that easier, there is a word processor, and I'm not 100% sure if it's available all across the world or anything like that. It's called Scrivener.
Yep.
And Scrivener is
I use it,
built.
yeah.
Yeah, Scrivener's built with all of those, the fact that you're going to have to keep up with all this in mind. So it has full features built into the program, unlike, say, Word or Google Docs or anything like that, that are going to allow you to keep up with all that. You're going to have a character section. You're going to have a lore section. You can build all those things up. Even then, I did things backwards to Richard. I wanted to do a shared universe first. I was a short fiction writer. So I actually wrote my world Bible before I wrote my first full-length piece. And if you have that intention, don't let anybody look at you and tell you, like, no, you're thinking too big, you're starting too big, whatever. If that's where you intend for it to go, I highly recommend doing that first. Sit down, write the world, make some example characters. The longer you chew on something, the longer you chew on a world, on a story, the more your brain is going to adapt to thinking in that universe, and the easier it's going to be to throw everything down.
Okay.
Cool. Another question from the wonderful Neil Castles is like, how do you deal with any lore inconsistencies? Like, do you ever find yourself caught in a trap where you go, oh crap, I've written 50,000 words and then I just made a mistake or something? David, right off the gun.
Yeah, like I said, starting one book and then diving 1,000 years before, yeah, lore inconsistency can really start coming up. It's the Bible documents, it's I kind of I think I yo-yo between a discovery writer and a really layered sort of methodical writer. Probably says something about my mind, but um, you have to chart the course of the lore. You have to chart the course of characters. You have to plan out the world. Yeah, you can dive in and just start writing, but in order to pull those elements together, you really do need those central documents. I've broken law. I've broken magic. I've broken everything as I've been writing this. But you just got to constantly reference back what you've already done and the background material, and then just tinker with it. So breaking law happens, but yeah, it's having those master documents that helps you get back on track.
Damon.
Yeah, it's very, very similar to what Richard said there. I would also add that until it's been officially published and out in the world, it isn't in the right way a kind of canon. Once it's out and available for readers, that is now an official kind of, this is how the world works, these are the rules, etc., etc. And so you kind of have to then base going forward what you work on from the official stuff. You can kind of change and break the law as much as you want behind the scenes, as long as it matches what you've already written. For example, working on this series, I've rewritten the lore of the magic and of how certain cultures or militaries operate. I've rewritten them over and over, changing and breaking them to make sure it made sense. But once I put that first book out in the world, once that was published, all of those kind of world building tidbits I put in, all the little character flaws, the larger scale stuff of the map where the world actually like operates within, how everything is connected, the magic, the spiritual side of things, everything like that. Once that's out there in the world, you then have to play off that. That is now the new, I guess you would say, like the starting gun of this whole thing. You can't then go to the next book and rewrite and break the law again, because the inconsistencies are now not just noticeable to yourself, but to everybody else reading them. And readers there's a trust that you'll provide to these readers. They have a trust in you to give them a world that makes sense. Because once you start to break it, the immersion breaks, then their enjoyment breaks, and then now they're no longer reading your stuff.
Yeah. Trinity?
I had that issue you're talking about with once it's published, because I wrote the first book and then the second book and the third book is a prequel. It was like remembering all those things that like already exist in the world and the people and the characters and the things like that are going on. And it's that whole idea of trust and not like, okay, how do I make these things line up? Because like this event happened and it was already mentioned and noted. And so I have to go back now and like create that scene accordingly. But then also I'm writing another story now, and I got like 80% through, and I was like marketing it kind of in my head as like this mermaid story. They're sirens, they're evil, but like the story hardly takes place in the sea. So it was kind of like that. Oh wait, what am I doing? It's not actually about them. They're just these like a part of the world. It's part of the world building, right? Like the character isn't that, and it was wrapping my head around this, and now I kind of have to go back with this intent that this is the story, this is the setting. They are different, but it's just thankfully that one's not done, so I can go back and do anything I want with it still.
Yeah, well, I did a prequel to my book Ancora. Ancora's up there. I did a prequel to that, and it's set like 250 years before, or something like that. But I got to have so much liberties with it because in Ancora, it's like this is like what they think. Like the whole deception is a kind of theme around the whole thing. So it's like this is what they think that happened. So I could just make it a little bit different back here because this is what really happened. And I had a lot of fun playing with it. But I think I'd have a nightmare trying to if I wasn't allowed to have the deception stuff there. Richard?
One thing that I think has helped me on this a lot is I actually started out doing media tie-in books before I started doing original.
Oh wow.
So I was, very honored to be able to like write for Star Trek, Doctor Who, stuff like that. So that forced me to do a lot of research because, well, you think Trekkies get finicky, annoy a Whovian. That is never, never a good idea. So, and the basic rule is you can't break what is official canon. Like in Star Trek, if it's shown up on a movie or a TV show, that is what you have to work with. You can budget, if you have a really good explanation that you can convince the editor works, and then you have to convince the licensor that it works, because eventually you got to fix it back. Because they're very, you can play with their toys, but you had to put them all back on the shelves where they came from.
Yeah.
So that's helped me with my own personal writing, because I've gotten really paranoid about making continuity errors in my own work. So I'm constantly going back and going, wait, how did I set that up? How did I do this?
Yeah.
Because like I said, getting, you really don't want to be that guy, because then the editor, may or may not bring you back to work on the next book.
You broke my toy. Snatch
Exactly.
it back off you. Yeah. Yeah, Jesse?
The broken toy was a really great transition. So I'm gonna relate this to different jobs and hope it helps people with kind of relating it to their life. So if you're driving along and your car breaks down, the engine cuts, and you got to go and you got to pop the hood, and there's 8 billion different things that could go wrong. And for most people, if you're not a certified mechanic, it's an extremely frustrating moment. Well, I worked in a mechanic shop. And when I worked in a mechanic shop, every once in a while, somebody would bring the car in, the mechanic would look at it, it'd be a 15-minute fix, and they're off and away. But I also watched mechanics replace transmissions. And replacing a transmission is an 8-hour job, banging away with a brass hammer. And I can't say any word on this podcast that wouldn't get bleeped out later that comes out of that mechanic's mouth. It is just constant cussing and hammering and banging. There's no job that doesn't have that moment. There's no job you're ever going to do that doesn't have the expletive filled, throwing stuff across the room, tearing it apart and putting it all back together. And lore breaks are just one of those moments. There's no option but to just dive back in, go look in your other book, go look in your Word document, figure it out, cuss through it, bang it out, and then get back on the road. That's all you can do.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, exactly right. I think that it can be one of the most frustrating things where you've got a concept or you've got an idea of where something's going, and then something in the back of your mind goes, hang on a sec, something's already happened there. And then that's the law break, right? Where you just go, oh, hang on, what did I do oh, okay, no, actually that's not going to work. It's really frustrating where you have to just kind of pause and then regroup. But I think as authors, it's one of the fundamental responsibilities that we have to make sure that our characters, our worlds, our lore, our backgrounds all make sense and does all tie together. There's nothing more frustrating. I was reading a book, an indie book the other day, and this guy lost a beard. I'm not sure what happened, but between two chapters, one he had a really long beard, and then the next one there was no beard, and for the rest of the story but it was done in such detail in one chapter, and then it was this smooth, clean-shaven guy, and it just broke the I guess the motion of the story. And from that point on, I really lost interest, and it just didn't resonate with me. So I think it's really important to keep track of these things. It's, like I said, one of the fundamental responsibilities that we have.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan's stuck his hand up.
Yeah. I guess I'm coming at this from a reader's perspective. Have you guys actually had any experiences when a reader has reached out to you and gone, hey, this happened here, but then this happened here, that doesn't make sense continuity wise? Because that's something that I would do. I'm a completionist. As I said, I've been reading comics since I was 8, and I took a break for about a 5-year period, and now I'm going back to reading those, but I'm still literally going week by week and reading each one. And if something comes up continuity wise in a book, in a comic, anything like that, that doesn't make sense to me, or I think, hold on, that shouldn't well, where's the gap there? I will literally reach out to the writer or to to the publisher or something and say, hey, am I missing something? Did something happen here or anything? So I'm wondering if you guys have actually had anyone reach out to you in relation to any possible even the tiniest little continuity issue in any of your books.
No, they're all perfect.
Okay. Oh.
Oh, all the hands go up. Trinity, did you, or were you just fake waving?
No, mostly the beta reader phase catches those things. You hope that like the continuity things will be caught in that stage. I mean, like, I had my aunt point out something to me, but she had read an early draft of the book, and then I guess had read the second one later and had pointed something out, but I was like, oh no, that was already fixed because it was in that stage of it was already corrected. But otherwise, like, yeah, just hoping that the beta readers catch it, and even if it makes it to ARC readers, like there's still like the chance of fixing it, but you hope that at that point you have it down. My own personal experience anyway.
Jesse?
I'm going to give what I think is honestly a worst nightmare, which is the exact opposite. So as Trinity said, you try and catch all that in beta. Like that's what beta readers are for. And my first published story had 15 of them, not including like editors. I mean, I gave it to every friend I could find that would read it. It was a mill sci-fi piece. And the ships, there's a couple things. Ships have to be italicized, and they have designators. I did standard Navy stuff for my spaceships. Then it's all about drop troopers. So we leave the spaceships, we get dropped down feet first into hell, into the planet. All the exploding, shooting, chaos reigns. And then eventually the ships have to come back in and pick everybody back up. Well, I had meshed two different drafts of the story together. So I have draft 1 and draft 2, and I took them and slapped them together and made them all one story, and then I sent that out to everybody and had them all read it over. It went through all my beta readers. It went through the editor. It got published. And it was only after I sat down with the first copy of ever having a book with my name on it in my hands that I opened up and realized the ship designators were totally different between the beginning of the story and the end of the story.
Oh, no.
So
it's a panic moment.
I would much rather somebody look at me and be like, hey, man, what the hell? But instead, it went through everyone, and nobody ever noticed. And to this day, no one said a word to me.
It's like David's beard story. He's reading suddenly there's no beard. Like suddenly the ships have changed. Yeah, David, go ahead.
Yeah, Jesse, I feel for you. That would have been terrible. So I guess two things. One, it just really shows the importance of beta readers and good ones.
Yeah.
I've had beta readers which you go, oh, I love your book, great. It's like, okay, but that's not what you're here for. Like, give me something. Like, I want to hear the bad stuff. What didn't work? And it's like, no, this is love it.
Yep.
So it's really important to find those things. I haven't had continuity errors, but I've had one really good example. I had a beta reader really question the motivations of one of the characters. So in one of my novellas, they go through this whole like challenge, and I wrote it where it pushes them to be almost suicidal in their drive for vengeance. And the beta reader came back going, I reckon they'll probably have survivor guilt. I really don't think they would have this like pathological like need. I think there's a different orientation for this character. And that really made me kind of take a step back and reread what I'd written, and then go back and read what's going to happen in the future. It's like, actually, you're probably right. That's probably a better arc for this character than where I put them. So it wasn't a continuity thing, but it was more a questioning of where the development of that character had gone. So again, beta readers, they're just gold to help you with this stuff, because you think you got it, but then and a different
Yeah.
perception and a different viewpoint can really help you fine tune things.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Okay.
Anyone else? Yeah, Richard.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Not so much for continuities for me, but I credit that to my primary editor, because he's been editing me for over 30 years now. And when I got the first envelope back from him, when you actually had to mail scripts out and stuff, and just took the envelope and held it by the corner and just watched all the red ink just pouring out of the envelope. It's not so bad anymore. Either he's just getting used to me, or maybe I've improved a little bit. I would like to think the other. But for me, what I'm more concerning about right now is this upcoming anthology, because I have had a few of the authors reach out to me and go, "Hey, what about this? Or could I do this or that?" And that's great. Some of the others are just writing their stories. And now I'm going to get to go through all of their stories and hope that they actually did read the Bible that we sent them. And and allowing for things look differently. You can have and see, the thing is, in something like that, you can have some continuity errors because everybody sees the world differently. But I just I've gonna have to go through though and make sure that if they say something takes place in the city here, or if this character here, because I don't need them killing off a character that somebody else is using. And it's going to be very interesting when the stories start coming in July, and having to really weed through them, because I've been a technical editor, but that's a whole lot different than being a literary editor. And this is my first time actually sitting down and really digging through other people's stories. So I will find out the pain of continuity here very soon. I'm very certain.
Yeah, Stacy.
I think, just like everybody else has said, my beta readers have been fantastic for that. The things that they've come back with me, continuity wise, have been relatively small. I have one lady that does fantastic with languages, which I found that I'm no good with foreign languages. And every story that I write has a lot of foreign language in it for some reason. So she's been fantastic with the translations, because nothing, you put it into Google and it does not translate right at all, which is why we have all these donut shops called Sweet House Donut and things like that. Because the translations just aren't great sometimes. But she speaks multiple languages and she's wonderful. And that's been one of the biggest helps beta reading wise. My biggest continuity thing that I caught was that I had written a really large series and had a very large cast of characters. And after like the fourth story, I realized that one of them just didn't make it in there at all. She was just gone. And so I just went back and added a prologue and killed her. Problem solved. I'm solved.
That's awesome. Well, I guess I'll share my continuity thing. This happened again. It's like you, Jesse, how we went through all the beta readers, it went all through all the ARC readers. Like got 10 reviews on Goodreads or whatever, all pretty positive. And then I had a old friend go, "Oh, I just read your book," and he goes, "Is this supposed to be this?" And I named a character wrong in one play, and it was supposed to be a twist. It was the twist of the book, and I hinted at it accidentally earlier, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And I'm going, "Thank goodness I'm indie." I just edit, upload. No one will ever know, but it's just that thing is that I need better beta readers. I need better ARC readers or something. Just insane. All right, yeah, Trinity.
That was like I did have something that I caught later. So I made up a word for grandfather and grandmother in the language of this world, and I mixed it up. I had called them the wrong one, and it was like, thankfully at least nobody like mentioned to me if they caught it, but I caught it, and I was like, oh shoot! So I, same as you, just went and uploaded the new file, changed it. It's all good. It's like, oops, wrong grandparent.
If it's something trad won't do that. If you're a trad, they probably won't go. Yeah, well, it's out there.
Yeah. Your mistake.
Cool. Anyone else got anything on inconsistencies before we move on to the next topic? No? All good? All good. All right. I'm thinking like, okay, you're building your world. Like, how do you know when you stop for it enough to be for the story, or do you just stop writing the book and you're suddenly in world building mode? Like, I guess, yeah. How do you know when to stop, if anyone knows? Yeah, David?
You don't stop.
You don't stop? You just keep
It
going?
it just it keeps going. Like I can only tell from my experience. I started writing one book, and like I said, it just the layers and the complexity and the lore and the backgrounds that I put in. I realized it wasn't even the start of the story. So it just keeps growing, and I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of writing, right? The characters take on lives of themselves. The storylines start splitting off because they have repercussions and they touch other people and they touch other parts of the world, and you start following those threads. So yeah, it does not stop, and I do not want it to stop. I want to like keep myself in this world, and I hope it continues.
So just to follow up on that, David, does that mean you want to, you got this fantasy world? Does that mean you're going to start going out to the galaxy? You're going to start, turning it into a sci-fi, but there's more fantasy worlds out there.
Look, that's not as ridiculous as it sounds. I'm not going to go sci-fi, but I started like 18th century setting. I've now got 1,000 years before, which is like your traditional fantasy medieval setting, and I'm writing the prequel, which is more in that. Then I got a sequel, so that's going that way sometime soon. And then I've got some ideas which are other novellas which are coming on, which are going to be sprinkled along the timeline. So it's not going to be sci-fi, but I don't know where it's going to end up.
Awesome. Richard, you had something to say?
Well, I said my basic point, and then what I tell a lot of new authors is one, world building needs to stop when it becomes procrastination, because eventually you got to sit down and write your darn story. You can build the greatest world in the world. Eventually, you have to write a story. I try to look at it as how much world building do I need? Because I mean, if I'm telling this grand epic fantasy Lord of the Rings thing, well, yes, I'm going to need multiple countries and all this, terrain and yada, yada, yada. If I'm telling a cozy mystery, I may only need 2 streets. But for me, I need to then build about 5 streets out in all directions, because even though the story will only take place in this specific area, when people leave, they need to feel like they're going somewhere. You don't want to just have, second spear carrier from the left walking off stage. He should be going home. He should have a family. Even if it's only, or people walking past might mention a business on another part of town that you'll never visit in the story, but it makes the city feel lived in. So don't build tons of stuff you don't need, but build just enough that it feels like beyond what the reader's going to see, there is more world.
Yeah. Cool. Stacy, you had your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to say I totally agree with what these two guys have said, and then maybe too, just to add, if you get to a point where you don't want to be in that world, then go live in a different world, for a little while. Eventually come back to it.
Jesse?
I'm a big proponent that good storytelling is universal. And what I mean by that is it works. Genre is what we use to tell people about the book. It's not what's important to making a good book. Now you get tropes and things like that, expectations, that's all market stuff. But the core of writing a good story is the story. It's focusing on the story. So Richard really nailed it when he said, like, hey, you've gotta write, not too much, but just enough to make it feel lived in. You have to figure out what the story needs. If the story needs a street, and that's it. If it's if you're writing a 10,000 word story about a fight between two rival gangs, all you need is a couple city blocks max. But if you are doing this huge epic fantasy, you're going to need that. But in the end, you will always write more world building than you put on the page. It's guaranteed to happen. So what I tell people is that's how you measure is, does the story need this, or do I need this for the story? Do I need this to tell the story? Because if you find yourself doing world building and then you stop and go, wait, nobody cares. like, like it's like, I don't need to know what's going on Zegama 9 right now. I'm writing about Pegasus 4, and I'm not going to get to Zegama 9 for 6 more books. Well, that's a problem for future you. Leave the problem to future you and write your story.
Yeah. That's cool. Anyone else? Anyone else? Nope. Shaking their heads. All right. Well, I'm going to bring up a topic that I know we all love, and that's maps. You all build worlds. Amy Cormack isn't here, but we can still talk about maps. That's an intro for some of the guys. I don't know. Like, what's your approach to maps? How big are your maps? I don't know. We're talking about maps. Any topic on maps? Trinity?
I started writing fantasy not knowing that I was a fantasy writer. So as I was kind of developing, the discovery writing and just developing this world, it's like, kind of started to create these places and draw it out for myself and like have this map. But I was like in a really big scale. So I drew out like this country, and here's like major cities. Like I'm like, oh, but I want to do the zoom in thing where I go right into this place and there's so much going on, but I never did. I just like
Yeah.
country, there you go, with some cities and towns. There's stuff going on here. It's just like I'm very just very general, like here's a picture. I probably could go more in depth with
Yeah.
maps because they're so fun, and like I see Briggs's map.
Wow.
They are. I love maps in real life. I wish that I could like create them better in fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll go with Damo before we get
That's it. I mean, I love making a map, and I just have fun with it. I kind of just like start by, let's just have fun. Let's enjoy this process, and then we can work out how to make it more realistic a little bit later. And as I went through the map making process, I would constantly show it to people and to be like, does this make sense? And what I meant by when I was asking that question was topography or climate or things like that. Like if you have rivers, in particular, bodies of water are a big issue you need to remain aware of, which is where are they coming from? Where are they going to? In some aspects, with some fantasy, you can kind of get away with breaking a little bit of rules, but it needs to have like some kind of magical element to it as to why this body of water might go up a mountain instead of down the mountain. And you can say, okay, well, magically, blah, 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 right? But for the most part, if you're trying to make this world close to real, it does have to kind of follow realistic maps in the world. And so, yeah, I find myself just enjoying, like, what if we put this here, or what if we put that there? And one of my biggest inspirations, funnily enough, isn't actually Lord of the Rings, it's Del Toro Quest, which was an Australian children's fantasy series. And it was a very simple map, really, really simple, very basic. But because she had a book dedicated to each of these major locations, the fun was experiencing the journey with the characters through the map as well. Each book would start with, here's the new location kind of thing, a little trail of where they've been and where they're going. And you felt like you were participating both in the journey, in the story, and in the development of this map. So that's kind of how I started to then work on my maps, which was, let's make it so that the reader feels as though they're also participating in both the journey of the story and the development of the map and where these characters are.
Anyone else? Richard?
Well, I have to admit, I come by my love of maps. Honestly, my father was a highway engineer for the state highway department, and I basically started reading maps when I was about 3. And he was training me how to do it. But I like to start like with a map. I mean, even if it's just nothing more than just a squiggle at first, I just throw a squiggle on the thing, And then I'll look and say, okay, well, this is sticking out here, so that obviously mountains must be here, because outside of something like Florida, most things that extend into the ocean are a line of hills or a line of mountains. And then once I know where the mountains are, I can kind of figure out where, okay, based on that squiggle I drew, then the rivers must empty out here, here, and here. Well, if the rivers are here and the mountains are here, then the people have to live here, because people usually start out living near rivers. And then little by little, then I can see where it shows me where the country boundaries probably should be based on the terrain. And now I know where my countries are. And well, this country is big and flat, so it's probably very agricultural oriented, versus this one up here, which is in the mountains, so it's probably more mining and in industry. And little by little, your map can actually build, just the map can build the world. And then once you've got your world built, then now you have multiple places to tell stories, because you may have your overarching story, but now you know what the flavor is going to be like as your person travels around on this map.
Nice. David, you going to show us your map again? Ah.
So yeah, so I guess my approach to the map, the whole map thing. So I started off, the core of the book was this apocalyptic event. So I kind of extrapolated from that. Well, what does that mean for the terrain? What does that mean for the environment? So that's kind of dictated how that part of the map would be. But then I started expanding on that to go, okay, well, how far does that, like the repercussions of that event actually ripple out? What does the terrain look like at the edge? What do the populations look like? And that really dictated so this is based on a continent, that really dictated the size of the continent, because I could then say, well, this event happened here, but then all the way over here, the effects of that event have not reached there. So then this is what the land looks like over there. That's what the settlements look like over there. And then gradually I just started layering in other civilizations, other kingdoms. And then I could say, well, this one actually lives at the edge of the like the aftermath of the event. So the impact on them would be, this is their way of life. This is what the landscape looks like. That has an effect on the buildings. That has an effect on the economy. Whereas over here, it's lush, it's beautiful, it's farmland. So they got a very different economy. And then that has an impact on the way of life, the citizens, the level of technology in that environment. So kind of the story started the map. And then as the map developed, it flipped, and the map started really influencing some of the elements of the story, which I found really interesting.
Cool. Anyone else? Maps. Going once, going twice. I guess I'll throw.
I think.
Yep.
I was just going to say, I think, in my opinion, as a reader, maps are more, for me personally, are more useful mainly with fantasy. That's where I've had the most experience with maps, from a young age, reading David Eddings' Belgariad series, where it's a 6-book series, and it's about the journey from one point to another. So each book essentially encapsulates one section of this world. And I always remember the very first, you open the page after the dedications and everything, there's a map of the area that you're going to be dealing with in this book. And I found and it wasn't a greatly detailed map. It was just a simple, I mean, this is going back to before we had computers and everything. It was a simply a drawn map with the major locations that we were going to be visiting in the book. And I would find myself flipping back to that page when I got to that era of the story. So I'm wondering, obviously, yes, I could 100% tell, the fantasy authors rely heavily on the maps for, world building, for telling the story. But I'm just curious if any of you guys have actually experienced any other kind of genres that you would, you would find a map useful for.
Yep, Damo, right off the gun.
The first one that comes to mind, funnily enough, is Matthew Riley with his action novels. So he writes a lot of very heavy action thriller kind of novels, and he will have multiple maps at the beginning of his film that dictate in incredibly accurate scaling terms how a base is meant to look, or even inside the base, rooms as well, because what he will do then is literally use every single piece of information in that map to tell you, when the big action scenes are happening, how far a character is from safety or from danger. So I would say maybe it's not the entire action genre within novels, but I definitely know that, yeah, having read a lot of Matthew Riley, for an action novel, you wouldn't expect lots of maps, but to have them at the start, and then as you read through, you can kind of look back at these maps and go, oh wow, they are actually 30 feet from the door where he said they were. And I find that to be actually really helpful to keep me kind of feeling like it's all really happening. It's that kind of pulse pounding, momentum forward sort of writing that he does.
Excellent.
Cool. Stacy?
So Bet Donovan does not have any maps, but it does take place in pre-Civil War America, and a lot of the concept of the book revolves around the Vanderbilts and their building of the U.S. railways during that time. And so when I set this up with Ingram Spark, and that edition goes out, I am planning on adding some of those maps, which I think would just lend a really good aesthetic sort of to the reader to be able to visualize, the sort of how much of America, had actually been lived in at that point, and, what was just massive swaths of nothing. But yeah, nothing yet, but I think those would be great to add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jesse?
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Believe it or not, there's a section of sci-fi that really benefits from maps. Especially, and it may not be the map you're expecting, but like a solar map. If you have a space opera and there's spaceships flying around and your characters bouncing between planets and all this crazy stuff's happening, having some kind of solar map really grounds people in, like, oh, okay, cool. So they had to go over here to do it. It gives people a sense of space, when space itself is very hard when you don't have that north, south, east, west orientation. For me, maps are a struggle. My big project is cross-genre portal fantasy. So I need like 85 maps, and I can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I need a map of Atlantis, I need a map of Hell, I need a map of Purgatory, I need a map of this planet, this version of Earth, that version of Earth. I can't do that. The way I fixed that, because I can't draw worth anything, is getting landscape artwork done. So at least you get a picture of this place. So when everybody comes through, it's called the Midnight Sea. When everybody comes to the Midnight Sea, they pop out of the water and they end up in this new place. At least you get an image of what this kind of place kind of looks like, and the feel and everything like that. So like, that's literally one of the stretch goals in my Kickstarter is I want to give you more pictures of where you are, or more maps. Please help me pay for the maps.
Yeah. Yeah, David?
Yeah, similar about the solar thing that you're talking about, Jesse. I think what I'm finding is that as I start to expand my world, and I'm now having stories and settings in different places in the world, then that map, not only is it useful for and interesting for the reader, but it's really important for me, because I've now got things happening in lots of different areas. And it's kind of, is that to the west or is that to the east? Is that in the colder region or is that in the warmer region? Actually, I've just written it so it's like this, but I've said the distance is this. So actually, it's going to be more like that. So it's a really good tool for, as an author, to help you keep track and also polish some of the finer bits of the environment and distance as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
besides, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. You're right.
Besides fantasy, like I said, sci-fi, encourages maps, but as Jesse pointed out, the problem with space maps is that they're not three-dimensional, because how do you put a three-dimensional map really into a book? Because most planets, most stars are not on the same plane. But when you look at a regular two-dimensional map, it looks like they're all nice and evenly spaced out when they really aren't. Which is the good and or the bad part. I've written a couple of short stories for BattleTech, which is a gaming system. And I love the maps that came with the game, because they're very detailed and all of these planets, and you can do stories all over the place. But again, you I have to accept the fact that it's a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional space, and it just I gotta just take it for what it is, because if you try to put too much science into science fiction, you're better off not using maps. If you want to go the more classic, Asimov, Clark, stuff like that, they did very seldom were any of their stuff put in maps, because they understood that it wasn't translatable. Space opera, you can get away with a lot more stuff.
I just want to add to that. If you're gonna do a map, do a map. Like, I find there's nothing more disappointing than you go, oh, it's a map. And so I think there's maybe 4 people that live there, and there's maybe like 3 trees. And it's like, if you're gonna do a map, really do a map, or don't do it.
Now, just 1 second. David, can you say that again, but slowly lifting up your map? I need it for the clip.
If you're gonna do a map, do a map.
So, brilliant. That's the promo shot.
That's an epic map.
Sorry, Stacy.
I said his map philosophy is more is more.
More is more.
Yeah.
Cool. That's the money shot. Anything else on maps? Or are you all mapped out?
I think I need to upgrade my map. After seeing that, I'm like, I need to add more detail.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Well, I've always told again, new authors, I said, make your map. Understand the fact that unless you're going completely indie, the odds that your map will be used in the book are low. Because if you go trade, they're going to hire an artist to do the map. Now, the artist will appreciate that you have a sketch, because that gives them something to work with. And if you're independent and you're an artist like me, which is AKA not at all, I can still sketch out stuff, but I will hire an artist to produce a publishable map, because I really don't want to inflict my drawing outside of my one book that I put maps in to show people that you can do maps for yourself. But you really don't want to publish. I would not ever use one of my personally drawn maps in a book, because I really would like to sell the book.
I like that Tolkien did his.
Oh, and see, that's the problem. I think that sets some uber high standards. Everybody assumes they have to have a Tolkien-esque map in their book, and they really don't.
Yeah.
But it is something to strive for.
I don't know what he's talking about. I have to match the once in a generational talent that fathered a genre. It's got to. It's if I can't do that, I don't belong. I don't belong selling my product.
That's great.
I'm just going to say, not only did research get in the way of writing my book, but my map got in the way of writing my book, because I was like, I think I need some more trees. I think I need what sort of trees? Or maybe there's a hill, or maybe there's a settlement on the hill. So yeah.
It's like we all need like that Jurassic Park game that's come out where you get to build your own park. It's like we all need that for building our
Jurassic
fantasy
World
world.
Evolution.
Yeah. Which I keep buying. I'm not gonna get the new one. I'm not gonna get the new one, and it goes like, there's baby dinosaurs. I'm going like, damn it.
I have a story for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not for here, but an actual
Oh, okay.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think I'll shoot out the last topic point, and we'll make it for all the people that are listening. If there's anyone that's an aspiring uh, writer and wants to do some world building, what's some tips that you'd give out to someone who's just getting right in? Oh, Trinity, straight off the bat.
Don't let it distract you from writing.
Don't let it distract you from writing.
But still, it's fun. It is fun. Like I do find for myself personally, there are moments where it's like I want to use my creativity, but I just can't create the words at the moment. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like go into world building and it's still progress in the story, it's still progress in the world. It's just kind of taking a break for a little bit to let my mind reset on the words themselves. So definitely like, but don't let it get too far that you're not writing.
Yeah. David, are you going to do it again, David? If you're going to build a
I'm
map.
gonna not just world building, but writing in general. Say goodbye to your Google history. Never ever look at your Google search history ever again because you will get scared.
The FBI does that for you. Yes, Richard.
So a resource that I recommend all the time is check out the Perry Castaneda Map Library. It is part of the University of Texas collection. They have just a Google of maps. And as a primarily a fantasy author, I love going through their historical maps because if you need a name for a village, if you need a name for a country, I'll go in there and grab like Britannia, and it'll be the old Roman map of Britain or Hispania, and look at all the Latinish names for cities that you already know exist. And then you can just, remove a letter here, add a letter here, and boom, you've got every fantasy name you would ever need without the annoying apostrophes and all the the gobbledygook that people just throw in there. But also just looking and seeing how they have terrain maps, they've got topography maps, they've got population maps, and you can see how real people have lived over the centuries and use that as kind of base some of your own map designing on seeing how all these real maps. And I think it's helped me immensely, make my maps feel more realistic.
Nice. Anyone else advice for the upcoming writer? Oh, yep. Oh, it was a tie between Damo and Jesse, but I think Jesse, because he's the gunslinger name, we'll go with Jesse.
Your world building, and I kind of already said this before, especially as a new writer, you're still developing a voice, you're still figuring out your flow. None of this is going to come natural. It's going to take agonizing time. I compare it to martial arts because that's what I'm practiced in. There's no martial artist that ever learned a martial art without getting punched in the face. Writing is no different. It just does it emotionally. You cannot learn to be a good writer without taking those emotional punches. So what I recommend with world building is the same thing I recommended earlier. You are writing a story. That is your objective. If you do not write the story, you cannot edit it. If you don't edit it, you can't figure out what world building you need. If you get stuck on all these things, if you get stuck on all the little pieces, it'll never happen. Take the punches, write the story, focus on that. And you'll run into a point where you go, oh man, this isn't going to work if I don't have another character. And you'll make another character. And then you go, well, this isn't going to work if I don't have a town for them to go to. And you'll make another town. Work on it from there. Take notes as you go. Don't worry about the rest. Nobody's going to care anyway.
Yes. Damo?
I mean, I just want to reiterate what Trinity, what Jesse, what Richard, what everybody has said basically over this whole talk. Particularly, maybe with regard to what Jesse just said, is write the story, the world building will follow from that. As well as what Richard said earlier, where he was talking about the streets and how you've got 2 streets that you're only going to show, but there's now 5 streets you have to create to make this world feel lived in. Again, that's an incredibly important part that, yes, not everyone will see everything you've done behind the scenes. That's fine. That's totally fine. But also try not to put everything that you've ever done into the book. People don't need to see literally everything that you've created or come up with. It has to match the story. It has to be part of the story to that extent, where otherwise you're getting into the weeds of things. And once you get into the weeds, the story is gone. People start to lose interest. But I would maybe my 2 specific points. One would be have fun with it though. Have a good time, enjoy it. It is a ton of fun world building. And so if you're not having fun, you might be putting too much pressure on yourself to create something perfect, to create something that your economy works and all the cultures make sense and travel all makes sense, et cetera, et cetera. And if you stop having fun, then you're probably putting way too much pressure and stress on yourself. So take a step back, take a bit of a breather, and yeah, try not to overload yourself with the world building. But I'd also say I'm going to go really, really specific here, and this is more towards magic world building in particular, which is make sure there's a cost. I think we can kind of get tied up with magic can do anything, which it can, but unless there's a cost to people using magic, it can kind of feel quite flat, and that there's no real consequences to this world. So that's kind of my 2 specific points to add to, again, agreeing with what everybody else has said.
Yeah, cool. Oh, David, jumping back in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the have fun. I think this writing thing can be hard, right? And you got to just enjoy the journey. You can backfill, I will sit down and I'll agonize over sentences and individual words, and then I got to remind myself I can backfill that. So just write, just write. It may be absolute rubbish that you're writing, but it's getting you somewhere, and then you'll iterate on it. Then you'll go back to it. You can add the detail. You can change the walking journey to a horse journey because actually, it didn't really make sense, the distance. Those things you can do afterwards, but just write the story and enjoy the journey. That's the most important thing.
Cool. And Stacy?
Yeah, so everybody's had fantastic advice, and I will not beat a dead horse on any of that. But I will just add, I guess, one thing and say, if you can find an idea guy that you can throw ideas back and forth with, that is, a writing community, some sort of a Discord group, just a friend that you can call up and say, hey, I have this idea. What if a character did this? And then you can play some back and forth. That is invaluable at times to your world building.
Awesome.
And if you share stuff with your partner, just take a deep breath before you go and just know that they love you.
Are you speaking from experience, David?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, guys. This has been great. We could keep going forever and ever and ever, but it would be an editing nightmare. What we're going to do is we're going to do the final plug, and I'm going to call this the segment called Selling a Book to Ryan, because that's going to be part of it. But we'll just go around, plug your socials, anything you want to share, but like maybe pitch a book to our listeners, but also to Ryan, and see if he'll buy it, So we'll go backwards and start with David.
So I'm going to pitch my prequel. So writing it at the moment, set 1,000 years before my published work, deep in the lore, deep in traditional fantasy, and it's really going to expand the world in a dark and gritty way.
Excellent. And where can people follow you? What are your socials or?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, X, Bluesky. So you can find me on my website, davidcornford.com, and all of my socials are on there, as well as links to my books.
Excellent. Damo.
Well, you've already got a copy of my book, Ryan, but I'll still pitch it anyway because it's been like revamped since you purchased a copy. So I don't know if you can see, but it's like especially large. Essentially, yeah, if you're a fan of that massive kind of epic fantasy with blending the dark fantasy into it and a little bit of horror, you love lots of characters, you love the intense action, you love the magic of a world, and kind of crazy set pieces, then yeah, the Tome of Harren is exactly what you should give a chance. I've got the sequel, working on the sequel soon, to have it finished, hopefully sometime published later this year. But I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, but you'll find me, yeah, most likely on Twitter or Instagram. Those are my best socials.
Awesome. Richard.
Oh, I'll start off with the socials. I'm actually kind of light on that. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on X under Nightwolf Writer, and of course my website richardcwhite.com. To sell to Ryan, I'm actually going to slip two in here because first off, I want to put up Cry Havoc, which is my latest book I just released. This is again my homage to the golden age of comics, where I've taken 3 mystery women and each one of them gets a novella in this collection. Also, the other book I want to promote, and since it's on theme, is called Terra Incognita, which is actually my nonfiction book I wrote on world building. I wrote it originally for authors, but for some reason, gamers seem to like world building. I mean, who knew that D&D players made maps? And it actually got picked up by a couple of universities. They were using it as their textbook for world building for their video game design courses, which meant I love August. Yeah, nothing like a new fresh group of freshmen coming in to make those worldy checks look good.
Yeah, that's it. I got a book on the Emu War, and a lot of schools picked it up, and I got a friend in New York, one of our sponsors, Martin Kearns, and last time I heard he's teaching it to his students. So
oh, very cool.
So they're learning about the Emu War of all things. Links down below for that, guys. But Trinity.
Yeah, I think you have my books too, but I'll pitch the first one because it's a little bit more practiced. It's Bloodbound is about a curse that's wiped out magic from the land, and these twin brothers' blood is entwined with it. They don't know it, and they mistakenly break the curse and reawaken the magic, which draws unwanted attention to themselves. And that is the first book I wrote. And although I probably should be promoting my newest one, I have to work on the pitch and the and for the whole trilogy itself. But yeah, I'm on all the socials, mostly active on X and Discord as of late. But if my website trinitycunningham.ca has all the links to all my socials and where you can buy the books. So it's all there.
Awesome. Stacy.
So my debut novel, which Ryan said that he would not read because it's a Western, is Bet Donovan and the Battle for Wyoming. It is the Italian Job meets Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes in the Wild West. A young samurai cowgirl becomes the reluctant protector of a small Wyoming town in a war between the locals and a group of corrupt U.S. Marshals. It is a ton of fun. I would love for you guys to check it out. It's an American folk tale, and so it weaves in a lot of real American history and tells how some pretty fun things came to be. I am on Secret Stacy. My pen name is SR Stacy. I am on Twitter at Secret Koran. I'm on Facebook at Secret Stacy, and I'm on Instagram at Secret Koran Stacy.
Awesome.
See, I love Guy Ritchie stuff too, and you're killing me. You're killing me. I really want to read it.
We'll do it.
You should really read it.
Won't let me.
Well,
my principle, like my whole fiber of being, is that I don't like Western.
But it's not like a regular Western, it's like a cool
it doesn't
Western.
matter. It doesn't matter. I'll tell you what. I'll read it for you, Ryan, and then we'll get Stacy to rewrite a special edition where there's no reference to the West.
That'd be awesome. If you could Do that. That'll be. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, we'll set it in Gotham City for you. Awesome. All right, Jesse, bring us home.
I am Jesse James Fain. You can find me at outlawauthor.com. That will take you to all the socials. I have a Substack that I really think is like cool. But I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on I have a personal Facebook page. Feel free to add me, but that is not professionally filtered. It's lots of foul language, guns, and tattoos. If that's your thing, show up. If it's not your thing, please do not. As far as works are concerned, my first full-length novel is called Gravesinger. It is all about a recently retired Green Beret whose specialty is necromancy. And Leo gets home. He gets home from serving. He's fought through his world's version of the Great War on Terror. And his best friend calls him, who's now a police sergeant and a detective, and says, "Hey, man, I got a case. It involves necromancy. I need your specialty. Get over here, help me out." What they begin to uncover is not only a plot that involves politics and trying to directly murder them, but it also drags them into an interdimensional ocean, which allows them to travel all across the universe. And again, that's Gravesinger. Once Gravesinger is out, once it's established in the world, I already have the stories in hand for an antho called The Holy Diver and the Midnight Sea. That is your interdimensional ocean. And you'll see stories from like Dave Kinsley, Charlie Cox, Michael LaVoice, and Jason Cordova. And so that's already in the pipeline, ready to go. So once Gravesinger's out, that'll be following.
Awesome. All the links will be down in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Be expecting a lot more episodes like this. We'll have a lot of fun doing multi-author episodes. I think the next one I want to do is on in-person events, prepping for something like that. If you guys have ideas, reach out. It'd be great. But if you want to reach out, thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. All our socials are down below. Check out our sponsors, Rebecca Kearsells, Martin Kearns, our honorary sponsors, Janelle Schiecke and Alexander Robb. All their links are down below. If you feel like it, buy Ryan's shirt. Because, you too can live the dream. Other thing is we've got a Discord, so if you want a better chance of coming on, because we've got that many people that want to come on, check out our Discord. Reach out, we'll give you the link. Meet us there, and yeah, until next time, keep supporting those indie authors, and we'll catch you on the next episode.